Hi there. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Mesha McKittrick. This is a podcast where we believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And where we also believe that as you nurture your relationship with yourself, you open up the angles and the things that you get to experience with other people, your relationships with other people. When we let go of our need for approval for others, we unlock this expansiveness of what's possible for our own relationships with ourselves, right? And we don't give away our power to the people around us. That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm so excited. Let's jump in. Among lots of other things, because this episode is so full and so fun. If you're joining us for the first time, the first season of this podcast, we talked about, we started when I was 15, pregnant, telling my parents, oh my word, what's going on? I went through a really rocky relationship. My daughter passes away. We go through grief. And then we're starting to come into a space where I'm getting divorced and still really trying to separate and pull away from my ex. And you'll see some of that in the episode today. If it's your first time listening and you want the whole story, feel free to go back and listen, or just hang out with us right where we're at today. We're happy to have you. In today's episode, there's a couple of things that you might just need a precursor as you're listening that will help remind you who some of these people are. So just a reminder that Chase is a cousin who's living with Jake. His family is serving a mission in Canada, and their family didn't all decide that they actually wanted to be there. So some of the kids decided to go live with aunt and uncle, right? And their kids are named Chase, Tana, Wynn, and Brienne, just so that you can keep it straight when they're mentioned in the episode. And then Lindy is Jake's sister. And Leah from the last episode. She's a good friend of mine and Jake's. And I think that will keep you pretty straight as you listen to today's episode. Let's jump in.
November 27th, 1995. Home from Montana. Possibly the last Thanksgiving with my family before I'm gone for 2 years on a mission. Super cold, but always loved being in Red Lodge. I really miss my Grandpa Mac. Sourdough pancakes, his laugh, his kindness, his cowboy toughness. I actually cried being around his horses again. My dad seemed pretty emotional too. I've always loved Miles the most. It actually felt kind of spiritual to pet him again. It was an amazing moment. The air felt different, and I'm not talking about the temperature. So glad Chase could be back to his home state and for he and Tana to see each other again. He just turned 16 on the 20th. Mom was not happy he and Lindy came home so late with having to wake up at 5 a.m. for our 13-hour drive. It's incredible Chase has so many awesome friends in such a short time he's been here. Lately he's been with Todd and Chris quite a bit and gets around in style, in Todd's Jeep or Chris's Ford. Todd is our amazing center back on the varsity team. Soccer season in 3 months. Can't wait. Oh, Tana had moved back to Billings to live with a friend for her senior year. It was great having her while we could, but I know she wanted to be with friends. My Uncle Trent, Aunt Donna, Brienne, and Wynn still live in Montreal for a while. It's crazy their family is split up to 3 different places right now. Even though I was only around Mesha a few times before our trip, I missed her like crazy. It's hard to get her out of my mind. And I couldn't refuse telling the best white lie I've ever told. At Brad's high school basketball game in Red Lodge, my other second cousins asked if I had a girlfriend. I showed them Mesha's picture and said she was. Luckily, Lindy wasn't by me to call me out on my little fib. She knows Mesha and I aren't that serious yet. I totally get it that I had the case of wishful thinking and just wanting to make myself look good. It worked. They were very impressed. Such an amazing picture, by the way. Glowing face. Her eyes are literally twinkling. It depicts her just as I see her, as happy and bright a soul as they come. If I had a nickel every time I pulled it out of my wallet to look at it. Yet she's gone through so much, and I still wonder what is beneath the smile. I have so many questions I'd like to ask her, but don't think I dare to. Where was I? Haha. So I can't really call her my girlfriend yet. However, it seems that maybe she is about to be. It's one thing that we hung out multiple times before I left for Montana. Amazing chemistry. Wow, I'm really saying that. Seems like she enjoys being around me. She even does this thing when we drive somewhere together. This sort of half smile with her lips, full smile with her eyes, and she grabs my thigh just above the knee. I'm quite ticklish as is, but this is a jolt of energy I just can't explain. Gets me every time. I love it. I'm in heaven just to be in the same car, and when she touches my leg, oh man. I digress. After school, Lindy was with me to Lynn's to go see Mesha on her shift. An excuse to buy a Mountain Dew and a Reese's. It's another thing to get Lindy's perspective. In the parking lot, she says, Jake, she totally likes you. Maybe I have a hard time reading clues, but she breaks down Mesha's giddiness, the way she lit up when seeing me come in, the flirting, the way she said goodbye while propping herself up on the counter edge. I see it more clearly now. Wow. Thank you, little sis. You just made my day, year, life. I can honestly say I've never felt so amazing. December 3rd, 1995. This is agony. Don't know what to do. I've been so caught up with all the time I'm spending with Mesha, and I've been putting off what to do about senior cotillion. My mom keeps pushing and pushing for me to ask someone. She's always way more on top of dance dates than I am. Of course, Mesha is the only one I'd want to go with, but she's not even in high school. Would she even want to go to a dance? Will she be embarrassed, feel uncomfortable, be worried people are looking at her, judging her? It's now less than 2 weeks away, 13 days to be exact. Who asks a girl this close to a dance? I either need to have the courage to ask her or not go at all. December 12th, 1995. Remember what I said about Mesha's reaction in Lynn's when I was with Lindy? Let's go ahead and kick that up a few notches. I did it. Last night I asked her to cotillion. No fancy sign, candy, flowers, or creativity. I'm out of time. It's this Saturday, and today is Tuesday. We were both about to head home from Leah's after hanging out. She didn't just say yes. She started screaming and jumping and hugging, more like aggressive squeezing, then more screaming and jumping and hugging. Jumping in circles, by the way. She even covered quite a few yards on Leah's front grass. It was quite the spectacle, actually. I've loved her bounce off the walls type of energy, but this was next level stuff. I stood there frozen, shocked, and startled, but loving every second of it. Thank you, Mom. I just needed that extra nudge. You helped make it happen. You pushed me to do something I wanted to do, but just couldn't get myself to.
Woo! Oh my word. Just hearing Jake re-describe my reaction when he asked me to senior cotillion. Holy. I can't even... He's spot on. I was like a circus act. Seriously. Running all over the grass. It was thrilling for me. I was excited to go with Jake. And for me, I was being asked to do something that, of course, I had always wanted to do my entire high school. It felt like dreams coming true for me. It felt like, and I love how considerate he was with his feelings. Like, oh, would she want to go? Because I was super not in the scene, right? Like I was starting to look to college, right? I was taking my GED. Let's see, have we talked about that? Sometimes I forget the things that we've covered. So, I was doing adult high school, and then what happened is they required 40 sitting hours per quarter of a credit. And so instead, I went straight to taking my GED, and then I went into college like in January. So in just a little bit more time. Yeah, so I just checked the timing. I referenced my journal just to double check the GED and all of that timing. And on December 10th, I wrote, P.S. I passed my GED. So it was a decision to bypass. I had one more year of health and a half of year of history to actually test out of, but I would have been sitting there past the time of my class graduating. And to me, that didn't make any sense. So I took my GED and committed to myself that I would finish college. And I did. I did. And so I took my GED and was in college, the next month in January. So this concern of Jake's, of whether or not I would be embarrassed, for me felt like, even looking back at it now, it just feels very considerate. And I've told you guys before, I feel so incredibly blessed for the ways that my parents influenced me in this arena in not being concerned about what other people thought about me. If you want to dive into more of that origin and how that came to be in my life, go clear back to episode 1 in season 1. That's a whole conversation about that. It really was my parents just showing up and saying, we're going to live life. And the thing that matters the most is what, happens inside of you and what's between you and your God. That's it. Like outside of that, gather in the people who love you, hold those ones close. And those are the ones that matter. And those are the opinions that matter. So a lot of years later in my life, I found this painting. And this painting is by Brian Kirshnick. And it's a painting of two people who are doing strange things with their body positions, right? They're kind of like they're kind of striking a pose while they walk, kind of like really, really funky like. Okay, that's the best I can describe it. I can put a link in the show notes so that you can see the art because I love it. I have it hanging in my home. One of the best things about this piece of art is it's called We're Just Doing This. And so you see these two people sort of doing whatever it is that they're doing, being very self-expressed. That's obvious. And then there's people on the corners at the top and they're looking, they're like peering at them. And some of them are pointing at them. And again, the title is We're Just Doing This. Like we don't care or we're not paying any mind is probably more really the tone. We're not paying any mind to what other people think about us. We're just doing this because it's what we want to do. And what we wanted to do, Jake and I, is to go to this senior cotillion. Holy cow, yes. Sign me up, yes. It was amazing. It was thrilling. Of course, I had to hustle to find a dress and the whole thing. And I borrowed one and everything worked out perfectly. And we'll talk about all of that in the next episode. One of the other things I just want to really point out that I think is kind of an interesting thing with how we experience life and as we move and go through life is the contrast that we experience, even day-to-day contrast, moment to moment sometimes, right? So this event of Jake asking me to the dance happened on December 11th. I know because I wrote in my journal, hello, it's me again. Guess what happened? I got asked to senior cotillion and I'm so excited. Jake McKittrick asked me, it's this Saturday night. He's so cute. Now this will give me something to look forward to instead of dwelling on stupid things. And the stupid things that don't matter that I'm talking about, I wrote about on December 10th, the very day before. The day before I wrote this. It's Christmas time and I long to teach Taylor all of the stories and songs of Christmas. It is so bothering me. Yesterday I talked to Jesse. He's saying how it feels so good to have someone to cry to and to hold. Well, I'm thinking that's just great. And that if his mom calls, tell her he's coming down to have lunch with her. I did tell him that I was working at 5 p.m. and it just so happens that at 5, when Mesha, talking about myself in third person, is going to work, Jesse is driving this girl Paula's truck with her in it and her 3-year-old baby, saying goodbye to his mom like he has known her for years. Oh my gosh, right? I didn't even look. I couldn't. I just ran into the store. The whole night I was shaky and my eyes were puffy. After work at 12:30, I went to Leah's, cried my eyes out, cried all the way home, and then played Taylor's tape and cried myself to sleep. The big point is he's doing it on purpose. And yes, she's very important because she met Mom. Jamie, my friend that lives in Parowan, told me that, yeah, she's cute, she has a baby, a nice truck, but she's a druggie, and that's not good for Jesse. But right now, I don't give a beep. The biggest thing that blows my mind is that when Taylor was here, he couldn't even take part in taking care of her, let alone us. But this woman must be something special. because he can do it all for her and her son. Okay, so we've been down the road time and time again where we talk about the pity party, right? We talk about, because you can see there's a lot inside of this. Obviously, you can see, first of all, that Jesse's doing this on purpose, right? He knows I'm going to work at 5. He just so happens to stage this whole thing that I see on the way into work so that it's hard for me to kind of, make me jealous or to maybe use it as a sideways way of trying to get me back. All the mind games, right? But then you see how I kind of fall into that pity. We're not going to have that conversation today because we've had that conversation a lot. Okay. But I just want to point it out. And I want to point out the contrast. That was December 10th. And then on December 11th, I'm doing a circus act on the grass because Jake McKittrick asked me to senior cotillion. And I think it's interesting what contrast gives us in life. Contrast gives us a glimpse at the things that we actually want to be more consistent in our life. Especially if we start to open our eyes and recognize it and take the steps to welcome more of that in, right? We don't always have to live in such vast contrast, right? That was a period of time where I was like, I can clearly see and recognize that these are options, and I can choose this life of drama and games, or I can choose this other life of excitement and happiness, right? And it wasn't really clear to me how the end of that road looked yet, but I know that there was a contrast in feelings. And you know what we feel the most, we teach our body that that's normal. And we can bring more of that into our life by feeling it more. That's why when we try to manifest things or when we try to bring things forward in our life, one of the most powerful tools we use to do that is to feel what it would feel like. Because then we can bring that more into our life, right? If you were trying to, bring forward a brand new car with that new leather smell and the way the steering wheel felt in your hands and so forth, if you put yourself in the car and you imagine what it feels like and smells like, and that will bring that to you faster than just saying the words, I want a brand new car, over and over. The feelings that we feel are so important. So if you're recognizing any contrast in your life, start to choose the part of the contrast you want more and feel that more and put yourself in situations where you're experiencing that more. I often have this relationship with work and play, because when you have a full and fun life and you work, you have to really figure out the balance. You have to figure out how to do that. And the thing is, you work better when you play. And if you play all the time and don't ever work, then you actually feel bad. And then what is the contrast of the feeling you're bringing into your life? Wow, we could go a lot of places. But the point is just starting to recognize that contrast can be such a beautiful thing for us. Because it can point us into a direction where we say, I like that and I want more of that. So a sideways tip for just normal living, okay? You're going to experience contrast in great big things. And it can be from moment to moment or day to day in big, big things. But if you start to get stuck in a little bit of a rut in your life, right? And you're doing the same things over and over and over, try introducing something new, an activity. Maybe do something different on the weekends. I feel gypped if I don't watch a movie on the weekends, I'm not going to lie. Simply, I just love escaping into another world and totally relaxing. Like turning off my mind and really enjoying, a fantastic piece of art. I love that. But sometimes there's not enough variety going on if we're just having a movie. There's There's nothing that actually stays with us as feelings that are concrete feelings that can go into the next week with us. And I think it's kind of interesting that this last weekend, Jake and I did active things both Friday night and Saturday night. We went for a really long walk Friday night, and then on Saturday night we went on a mountain bike trail ride. And it's something that we've done, and Jake definitely bikes more than I do, but I'm telling you, like, it just felt so exhilarating and so fun. And it felt different. And so if you feel like you're stuck a little bit, try bringing in something that will be a contrasting feeling. Try bringing in something different, even if it's just small little things, just to ignite different feelings, and so that you can continually present yourself with different choices, different roads. There's always different roads. There's always a different place that you can go to and experience. And especially if you're experiencing any sort of struggle, right? Especially in your relationship, go find something that's joyful for the two of you. Don't try to sit at dinner again. Go do something really active that makes you laugh and that's fun, that takes you into a different space so that you can choose those contrasting feelings over something else. And then you take those feelings to dinner the next week. Boom. It's so cool. Okay. So that little bit on contrast, I just loved that thought and that idea. Another thing that I want to talk to you from something that Jake said was this moment that he came upon, you know, they went to Montana, and he and his dad went to see his grandfather's horses. And I love these moments that are so real and hard to describe in words. You know, when he said it was an amazing moment, the air felt different, and I'm not talking about the temperature. And my brain loves to sit and ponder how it is that angels are with us as we go through our life, and how sometimes we get little glimpses of that. And my life, that's one of the I guess, side benefits of losing someone who's really, really close to you. You know, Taylor, and then later on in life, losing my dad. You know, and more people that are close, but those ones are the closest. Okay. My grandmother, like people that we just love, that we adore, that we miss, that sometimes we can still hear their voice in our head. And it's the coolest thing when we have those really neat experiences. And I know that we'll be talking more about those experiences, and there will be more space, possibly, hopefully, for me to share some more things in the future. Because it's one of my favorite topics to share about times where I've been very aware that angels are present. And just pausing and going slowly for a moment for you to recall moments like that and hold space for moments like that have happened and are yet to happen in your life. I just have so much reverence and respect for them. I want to go back to the idea of will Mesha be embarrassed, and the thoughts of what other people in our life have around us and how that may or may not affect us. There's a couple of other things that Jake mentions in this episode. He said, right, that he wanted to make himself look good when he wanted a girlfriend, and then he showed my picture. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing to ponder and to look at. Where does it come from that we want to make ourselves look good? What is our relationship to ourselves and to others in that moment, in those moments of desiring that or needing that approval? There was another circumstance where Jake was talking about his sister coming into Lynn's with him and how she pointed things out. And I think that's so funny because sometimes we move through life and we're unaware when, you know, just different times. Maybe it's not our territory. It was really Lindy's territory to know when a girl felt excited about a boy, right? But a boy kind of might need to be told, like, oh yeah, like she's totally into you. Did you see her body language? That kind of thing. there's a lot of value in our relationship with other people and the way that they benefit our lives by helping us, give us advice, or maybe they give us a little push like Jake's mom did, right? To ask me to the dance. But it's interesting that sometimes the way that we are and our relationship to ourselves can get in the way of those things. So first, I just want to talk about one thing that can really get in the way, because I think sometimes we don't understand or internalize how important this is. That the way that we are with others and the way we think about others, the way that that truly affects the amount that we can absorb or gain or be led or have our life helped by others, right? Our approach to who they are or their capability in our life. So there are these two terms that I love and I've learned about recently called Freudenfreude and Schadenfreude. Okay, I hope I'm saying them right. Schadenfreude is taking pleasure when other people get hurt, or, being happy that someone got fired from their job, smiling when you hear that something bad had, happened to someone that you're not fond of. That's that term, kind of that ha 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 ha, serves you right kind of a thing, right? And then there's this opposite term called Freudenfreude, and this idea describes the bliss that we feel when someone else succeeds, even if it doesn't directly involve us, right? So it's not like I can be really happy for my husband if he suddenly comes into some more money because that means it benefits my life. No. What about if it's someone else in our family that's not going to necessarily benefit us, or a friend or something like that? Someone that it's not going to benefit you, okay, necessarily, but let's talk about how it actually does. That's where I like to get into the juice. Because when we find pleasure in another person's good fortune, all that does is it teaches us how to feel. Remember how we were talking about that? We feel excited. We feel happy. We feel very pleased with what they've accomplished. And when we can be in tune with how it feels for them, then we bring that closer to us in our life. Whereas when we're not happy for other people, it doesn't matter the relationship to the person, by the way. Because I know that if you're kind of having this idea of like, you're probably not going to feel that when it's someone that's a friend, right? Or a family member. But if somebody comes into something great that is a friend or a family member, sometimes you can have the feeling of jealousy, and like, why wasn't that me? Really, really important to pay attention to how you're feeling when other people succeed. Because when other people succeed and you can be happy for them, all you're doing is telling yourself, telling the universe, telling your subconscious brain, I'm next. Let's do this. I'm so thrilled for them. I'm imagining what it feels like to be in their shoes. And so I love those terms, Freudenfreude, right? Finding pleasure in another person's good fortune, and Schadenfreude, which is the opposite. And so starting to just really pay attention to that, because that's something that gets in the way of us having these sort of exchanges in our relationships where we can get good advice from someone who's in a place that we admire and hope to be in, right? We know that they can give us good sound advice. And if we're having these negative feelings about them in our own private spaces, you don't realize it, but your energy is putting a block between you. So paying close attention to your relationship to yourself and your relationship to others, even the relationship that the other person doesn't necessarily see that you're having with them, is such a vital place And I never really, for me, I can remember walking into someone that I was really close to. They suddenly got a really, really nice house when I was, like, Jake and I were first married. And I remember walking through that house and being like, oh, I feel really out of place. I feel like, wow. Like, I don't remember necessarily like feelings of jealousy, but I remember feeling out of place. And so let's try to look at how we can replace feelings, whether it's feelings of being out of place, whether it's feelings of jealousy, whether it's feelings of spite or, like, oh, this is going to be temporary for you, or like something's going to come and ruin all of this great fortune for you. Sometimes our brain really does do that stuff, and it does it sometimes to protect us because, then we fall into like feeling, well, maybe I'm not enough, or maybe it was a trained behavior that we learned from, that was modeled for us when we were growing up. Whatever it is, we have to start paying attention to the way that we feel so that we can open up the floodgates, so that we can replace these feelings that are blocking into feelings that open and into feelings that say, me next, I'm next, put me in line, boom. I love that. And I know how to be happy for other people. And even if it doesn't necessarily come to me next, or if it's not something that I really want, I'm still going to practice truly being happy for you. Like, I want to ask you, what has been amazing for you? Because guess what? When I ask that, and also when I try to feel that for you, what you're also doing for the other person is really allowing them to glory and to be really, really happy in their own success. And that's not a bad thing, right? Until it turns into pride or something. But the bottom line is we can celebrate and we can be so happy for each other, and it brings us so much in our life. And the other part I want to talk about our relationship to others and our relationship with ourselves is this need for approval. And when the need for approval gets in the way of our relationships, when we're seeking and needing to be filled from what other people say around us, and how that is limiting what we experience in our relationships together. In regards to needing approval, Timothy Jeter says, when our internal sense of worth fails, whether from not ever properly being built, mental illness sabotaging it, or just having a bad day of doubting ourselves, that's when we turn to approval. And I want you just to do a little tiny self-examination and look at your life and your relationships and see the areas that you might be looking for or seeking approval from others. Kind of starting to rely upon that. Some of these behaviors can involve, it being very difficult to make decisions, big or small, without getting other people's opinion, not being able to just say, I'm making an executive decision, boom, it's done. Your feelings of feeling sad, happy, guilty, or anxious, depending on what other people approve of you, seeking excessive reassurance that you've done or are doing the right thing, feeling unconfident about decisions you've made or are making, rejecting opportunities and experiences you want because you worry whether others will approve, feeling ashamed if someone questions or dislikes your work, actions, or decisions. So if any of these resonate with you, I want to just tell you I'm with you. I'm here too. I'm looking at the list with you. And I'm kind of going, okay, this is where I can strengthen that in my life, where I can walk into a space of letting go of that need and to build myself up differently. Okay, so I want to talk about how do we do that. Before we jump into the how of that, I want to tell you a story about a lark. And this bird is sitting high in the branches of a tree, safe from harm, when he saw a traveler walking through the forest carrying a mysterious little black box. The lark flew down and perched on the traveler's shoulder. "What do you have in that little black box?" he said. "Worms," the traveler replied. "Are they for sale?" "Yes, and very cheaply, too. The price is only 1 feather for a worm. Here's an opportunity to get a good dinner." The lark thought for a moment. "I must have 1,000,000 feathers. Surely I'll never miss one of them. Here's an opportunity to get a good dinner for no work at all." So he told the man that he would buy one. He searched carefully under his wing for a tiny feather. He winced a bit as he pulled it out, but the size and quality of the worm made him quickly forget the pain. High up in the tree again, he began to sing as beautifully as before. The next day, he saw the same man, and once again he exchanged a feather for a worm. What a wonderful, effortless way to get dinner. Each day thereafter, the lark surrendered a feather, and each loss seemed to hurt less and less. In the beginning, he had many feathers, but as the days passed, he found it more difficult to fly. Finally, after the loss of his primary feathers, he could no longer reach the top of the tree, let alone fly up into the sky. In fact, he could do no more than flutter a few feet in the air, and was forced to seek his food with the quarrelsome, bickering sparrows. The man with the worms came no more, for there were no feathers to pay for meals. The lark no longer sang, because he was so ashamed of his fallen state. I'm telling you this story, and I hope your brain's already putting it together. That when we place so much approval in the hands of the people around us, we are no longer fully ourselves. We're no longer fully really self-expressed in what we think or what we want to do, the way we want to live life. We're really living it based on other people. Do you guys remember the movie Runaway Bride? I just have this memory of that movie. Remember how she never knew how she liked her eggs? And he was always perplexed. And in the end of the movie, remember, she figures it out. And he does this thing where he has eggs cooked every single way, and she tastes them all, and she actually makes the decision of what she likes. Not about how the person that she's with likes it, but about how she likes it. And little bit by little bit, she starts to come more into herself. And in the story of the bird, every single time we give away one of our feathers, we then one day look at ourselves in the mirror and we go, whoa, that's not me. I don't even look like myself. Right? And so they're tiny little things that we do to start to gain that approval. But when we give it outside of ourselves, we're giving our power away. There's a quote by a name that I certainly cannot pronounce. Tayi maybe, that says, "Lean too much on other people's approval, and it becomes a bed of thorns. The only approval you really need is your own. And it doesn't actually come in the way of approving. It comes in the way of being proud of what you do and who you're becoming because you feel good about it. It's filling your cup and being so aware that you're living in your purpose. It's actually spending energy on who you're being and feeling so great about it. When we seek approval too much outside of ourselves, it puts the power in someone else's hands. And we do not want to stand in a place where our ability to feel happy, sad, guilty, and so forth belongs in the hands of someone else. And so first, I would want to say to you, in addition to everything that is said in episode 1 that we talked about, is to realize that no one is paying attention. Sorry to burst your bubble, but the truth is that even when something happens and that's big, even if people talk about it, it's a topic for a little bit and then the topic changes. And they don't go through their life just to watch and look at your life. And a little PS that if they do, they're not the kind of person you want in your life anyway. If they're the kind of person who only talks about you instead of being concerned about you or whatever, right? Like, I don't know, oh man, she looked really ridiculous when she did this thing, right? That just means if they carry that for a long time, that there's not a lot going on in their life. And so number one, I would just say realize nobody else is paying attention. And then the biggest part of the whole thing with seeking approval is to be able to focus your energy upon getting in touch with what really matters to you. To start to listen to what you really want in your life and act upon that to make that happen. Because life becomes a lot more effortless when you're living in alignment with what's important to you. And so if you focus your energy upon getting in touch with what really matters to you and you start to listen to what you really want in your life and you act upon that to make that happen, now you're living your own life, not someone else's life. It becomes effortless. You're in alignment and it actually feels really, really good. So much of the time when we're really trying to fit in, it's because we've changed ourselves. And that's not actually belonging. That's betraying yourself for other people. Brené Brown talks about that all the time. If you ever feel like you have to change yourself or be someone different to be around someone else, that's not you. That isn't you. I love the camel story of the mother camel and her baby that were sitting and relaxing. And the baby camel innocently questioned his mom about the bumps on their back, and the mom explained that they store water there to help them survive in the desert. And he said, well, why do we have long legs with rounded feet? And mother explained, they're supposed to assist us to walk over sand. And her baby inquired a third time and said, why are my eyelashes so lengthy? Your lengthy eyelashes shield you from dust when it sweeps in the wind, the mother said. Well, what is the need for camels in the zoo if we have the natural ability to trek over the desert? The baby asked. The whole point of the story has zero to do with animals in zoos. The point of this story is that when you're not in the right environment and people are not seeing you for who you are, your skills, your talents, they're useless there. Right? And that's why you don't feel needed there. And that's why it's time to shift gears away from there. If you ever find yourself in a situation like that, it actually doesn't mean anything about your skills and whether they're good or not. What it actually means is that you're needed somewhere else. That your space and your place and the place where you're supposed to be and where you're supposed to shine is somewhere different. And I know how it feels to be in a space where you're not sure if you're wanted. And it really stinks when it's a place that you really don't have a lot of choice to be in, you know? Sometimes family situations can be like that. And we have to give ourselves a certain amount of a license with how much time we spend in places that we don't feel wanted. But we also have to recognize that sometimes we're creating that feeling inside of us. Like, I'm an Enneagram 2. If anybody out there knows anything about Enneagrams, one of their foundational things that they feel is they have this need to feel wanted. And when they don't, those are the areas in life where they struggle the most, where they don't feel validated. So this topic really is pretty close to home for me. When I tell you There were plenty of days before I came into doing more of what I know I was made to do. Okay, and I have to be careful in saying that, because I believe that in my life I was always doing what I was made to do. Okay, the same way I believe that you right now in this moment are doing what you are made to do. Okay, because our purpose isn't what we do, it's who we are. Okay? But sometimes we get lost in recognizing that there's purpose in the mundane days of life. That there's purpose in that smile that we hold on our face for that person that we see every single morning or whatever, right? But what really helped me to come into a different space that strengthened me in the areas where I struggled wasn't trying to combat those areas. It wasn't trying to prove my worth in those areas. It was building myself up in the areas where I knew mattered, where I knew I was supposed to be spending my energy, doing more of what I was made to do. And then more than that, to recognize that you're doing it. Okay, I'm telling you, this could be as simple as choosing the eggs that you actually like, not the eggs that somebody else likes. That's as simple as it could be. But starting to know you, right? Starting to come more into who you are. But I know that we all have a desire and a yearning to feel like our life matters, like we matter, like it's more than eggs, right? And so inside of that conversation, I would tell you, and it's hard because I don't know what kind of conversation that you need to have with yourself. I don't know if you need to have a little more grace and tell yourself, dang, you are doing a good job. Or if you need to tell yourself, it's time to stop floundering. It's time to build yourself up. It's time to do things that help you validate yourself. It's truly time for you to step into knowing that you're dedicating your time to something that matters to you, to your life, to your being. There's a quote that says, "An empty lantern provides no light. Self-care is the fuel that allows your light to shine brightly." And another quote by Eric Brose says, "The relationship you have with yourself will determine what your relationships with others will be like." And so when we're taking care of ourselves, when we're really filling our cup, when we're really, seeking out and putting our mind to what are we interested in? What do you find that you want to geek out over? What do you find that will help you come into a space where you feel fully self-expressed with whatever it is that you're doing, right? Figuring out your purpose and making sure that you are living a life of purpose. And I love this topic. I love the topic of purpose because, like I said before, I believe that you don't necessarily have purpose. I believe that you are purpose. And when you really tune into that, that is actually what propels you into living a life of purpose on purpose. Okay. Maybe I just totally sidewinded you and confused you. But the point is that you and your very existence is purpose. And when the lights go on and you get that, all of a sudden, everything you do is in your purpose. When the lights go on, all of a sudden you say, wow, I'm led here and I'm led there and I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm super in tune with my purpose. And so recognizing that, in addition to the things that we've talked about, right? Like the little things of knowing yourself and coming into who you are, being able to make, decisions big or small. Figuring out that your life, your experiences are yours. I love the quote by Eleanor Brown. You only have one life to live. Make sure it's yours. Make sure you're building a life that you approve of. Give your own self-validation simply by figuring out what you like. and giving yourself a pat on the back and celebrating for yourself when you do the big things. And when you get past looking for the approval of others and you actually do the deep work and you go a little bit deeper in your soul and you say, dang, what is today? What's there for me today? What am I trying to cover up by getting the approval of other people that I'm actually supposed to work on that brings that purpose tenfold into my life? And in what ways do I keep my own power? Okay, by not giving it away to others, by needing their approval, by needing them to say, yep, you're great. And trust me, I get it. Human recognition is one of our basic needs. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you walk through life and you recognize other people and you recognize yourself, you'll be living in a sea of it. Like it's going to come around to you no matter what. And if today doesn't necessarily feel like that, that's okay. Because you are coming into it and you are seeing more and more and more your purpose, your own way of building your own self. Sharon Salzberg said, when you recognize and reflect on even one good thing about yourself, you're building a bridge to a place of kindness and caring towards yourself. So stand in radical empathy. Love yourself. Recognize yourself. Be able to sit in your own feelings, whatever they are, without needing someone to take you there. I always resisted the term, you are worthy. Anyone with me? I think because it's been plastered on everything everywhere. But this is what we really get wrong when we have the need to be approved by others. We're truly forgetting our own worth, forgetting our own purpose. And so telling yourself honestly that you really are worthy and giving yourself the kind of talk that you need, whether that is grace and recognition for what you're already doing, or girlfriend, get up, kick yourself into gear, and let's figure this out. All of those are in your capability. You really are worthy. And you, your very being, are purpose. I hope that today, through all of this glimpse of so many beautiful topics that we talked about, that you grasp that your need for approval and your relationship to yourself determines how you get to interact in this world and with the people around you. And my hope for you is that you see the incredible power that you have when you take the time to validate yourself, to love yourself, and to lift yourself up. I promise you have more power than you think you do. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you loved this episode, please send it to a friend. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. I hope you're enjoying a beautiful summer, that you are opening your eyes to whatever the beautiful sights that you're seeing and experiencing. And thank you so much for spending a portion of your summer days with me. Until next time, my friend.